Anyway, so we are here. I have talked about the fear and the scare related to the escape of transgenes, the animals with additional genes, the animals with additional powers to enter into the natural ecosystem. It's quite weird. We don't know the implications. And I can tell you that there were examples that even because of the transfer of one species from one place on the planet Earth to the other ecosystem, it actually destroyed a lot of things in the new places. So there are a lot of examples of these things. If you know about the procedure of export of different agriculture materials, and the people who are in the class who has a background related to agriculture industry and especially the export of material, they should know. They must have information about that thing, that if you are exporting the mangoes to any country like Japan, Korea, we might be the best exporter of that fruit, but we are not, because we are not following the principle and standards they have set. And most of our farmers and agricultural industrialists, they usually complain about that fact, that why they put so many troubles, why they put so many principles and standards and traditions in exporting mangoes to those countries. So they always ask why we have to follow all these things. They seems to be like nothing to us, but they are very special and very important to them. One of them is a heat treatment. The mangoes are supposed to be heat treated. Another thing is that there should be no bugs. No bugs mean कोई fly नहीं हो इसके अंदर. There should be no bug. There should be no caterpillar. There should be no, nothing from our ecosystem should be there. We accidentally export some insect or some bug which can destroy their ecosystem. So they ask for all these things to spray them, to remove the bugs and to remove the insects and any larvae, and to heat treat, so that if anything is like growing beneath the skin or something there, should be destroyed as well. And then they ask us to export that mangoes to the west or to the far east. So completing all these tasks in a proper way is necessary in order to receive a permission to export our fruits to these countries. And our farmers, since we believe that farming does not require any education, that's absolutely bullshit. It's one of the most, I must say, easiest way of earning money. In Pakistan, we are supposed to be an agricultural country, so we should be more sensitive for these, for education related to the exports of our products. So the farmers must be taught, they must be trained for those things, that why the West is so much sensitive. Now you should be able to understand why, because one better species of fly, if we have a fly, I'm sorry, I might not be able to draw the fly very well, but let's suppose this is a fly. So one better species of fly from Pakistan, if landed in Korea, it might outnumber the local flies, which might not be strong enough in comparison of this fly. So they might outnumber this one. So we might be thinking, yeah, flies को मार दिया, उसको outnumber कर दिया, इसका क्या implication होगा? Remember, the ecosystem is about connecting different species in chain. So the fly is connecting to the next species, which is dependent on the fly. That species will be dependent on another species, connected with another species, and that's what we call as the food chain. Everything eventually touches humans one way or another. So in few years from now, that one a pair of flies or a mother fly who able to reach to that land might change and affect the ecosystem in a very different way. And you might also remember, even in the normal days, they do not allow the pets to enter into their country right away. they ask you to keep your pets for like in a quarantine for some period of time. So that was quite weird for many people who don't know about all these things. The reason why they're asking your pet to stay there for like a couple of weeks. Nowadays, quarantine is quite common. We understand the reason of quarantine, but at that time, in normal days, the animals were kept in the quarantine so that they should not transfer any disease which they might be carrying from the other land. Okay, so that's this very important aspect of transgenes as well. Okay, so these are some of the facts, but I want you guys to get more facts. Okay, to get more facts of 2021. Please try and find more facts recently, which were established now in different reviews and literature and in news. That the transgene animals, they are like more potent for producing babies, and they are more stronger, so it's very easier for them to outnumber and replace the wild type species. And also they live an abnormal life as compared to the wild type, and they could lead to the other troubles, population endangerment species. I'm talking about the salmon here, but this is a general rule for most of the transgene. I can tell you, every transgene has its own complication and abnormalities. Some of the abnormalities we know, and there are some abnormalities we don't know. Okay, आप लोग जिंदा है ना, याद है? Cool. Please stay with me. There's just important information. Okay. If you have any question, you can stop me. Okay. Allah ka wasta. If you feel that is how it might help you to stay alive during the class. I understand it is difficult time. It is difficult time for the teachers, for the students. I understand, but in order to get all these things, of course, we will not be able to understand and listen and you know, have a classroom environment. We are not. This is not an ideal situation, but we can try to make it more ideal with our contributions, if you like to, and you should. So the use of antifreeze protein promoter. Remember, it's not using the antifreeze protein. It's about using the antifreeze protein promoter. That's a very important technical difference, because the antifreeze protein is the one which allows that organism to live at a lower temperature. For example, the trout is not normally survive in the water below -0.6. We can guess that this is a freezing water, and transgene trout with an antifreeze protein gene promoter, it can survive in water as cold as -1.2. So that is possible if that thing is installed in the trout. And here is written antifreeze protein gene as well as the promoter. So when an antifreeze gene is incorporated, it will produce the antifreeze protein. So the antifreeze protein will allow that trout to live at survive at a lower temperature. But having said that thing, the antifreeze promoter is not a natural protein present in the trout. So that is not going to, I must say, help the trout to exist as a normal trout species. That is not nice. That is not normal. So if the trout is supposed to die, I believe, at a certain temperature, it should die. That is the natural selection. That's the natural, response. It should not survive in colder temperature. So it should not go to the colder places. But if we are like allowing that by incorporation of antifreeze promoter gene into the trout will be able to live even at a colder temperature. So the trout might be able to occupy the lands and occupy the areas where it should not go. And that is not a natural activity. It might affect that ecosystem as well. And remember, no matter how boring the ecosystem, how far is that ecosystem is there, if you are affecting the natural cycle, sooner or later that will going to affect all of us. Now we are like wondering that in the Arctic, Arctic is so far away. Nothing to do with Pakistan, but Arctic is actually affecting Pakistan as well, one way or another. The glaciers in the Himalayas are far away from us. But if we are destroying the ecosystem there, that will going to affect everything, and then eventually affect the water cycle and the river and the flows in Pakistan, and affect the crops and all these things. It's affect a lot of things. And the universal thing is the water cycle. And the water, when starts from the Arctic, it ended in the ocean. For example, Bahira Arab mein, Arabian Sea, the water entering into the Arabian Sea actually started from somewhere. It started from Himalayas, in case of Pakistan, Himalayas. Now this water which is present in the ocean, it should go back to the Himalayas. That's what that will complete the water cycle. And if we are hurting that thing, if we are hurting that stuff, that means the Himalayas will not be able to accumulate that much water for the future generation. That's exactly happening right now. So more water is destroyed, the rate of this thing is more, and rate of this thing is getting lesser and lesser and lesser. So that will going to change. And we all know that the level of oceans will be more in the future, and that will going to affect the world population one way or another. कुछ लोग सोचते हैं हम कौन से समंदर के साहिल पे रहते हैं, अगर समंदर का लेवल 2 फीट 1 फीट ऊपर भी हो गया तो क्या होएगा. Remember, if the level of water like increases for like 1 feet or so, it will destroy many cities, millions of people. And as well. Okay, so let's see some of the examples of the animal bioreactors. Oh, we have a Beer G, please ask you.
Sir, could COVID also be a result of disrupting the ecosystem?
Beer asked a question. There is no, I'm answering you scientifically, okay, first. So the question was that whether the COVID is because of the natural or ecosystem, the disruption in the natural ecosystem. The answer is no. There is no scientific evidence yet out there that the COVID is because of any human activity. There is no evidence right now that it was created by human as well. So the closest blame which we can put on the human is that, because we don't know the exact origin. We know, you might remember 1 year ago, the pangolin was one of the animal which was blamed. Bats were blamed the most. They are the responsible for transferring that thing to the human. This is called, if I use the term correctly, please forgive me if I'm wrong, zoonotropic transfer, like transferring, if a virus is affecting one species, and then it develops a mutation and it started affecting the other species. That actually allows that virus to jump from one species to another. That actually happens in case of coronavirus. It was living with some animal, and then due to some mutations, that virus is capable of affecting human receptor protein, which is present on the cells of the lungs. So the cells of the lungs carries a protein, I think ACE2 protein, and the coronavirus is able to produce the coronavirus coat protein, or the proteins present on the surface of the coronavirus is able to dock with the ACE2 protein of the humans. So before that, it was not able to connect with the human cells through this receptor. So that means whether we are inhaling that virus or not, it does not make any difference in our lives. But if a certain mutations changes the proteins present on the surface of the coronavirus and make changes in such a way that enables that protein to dock successfully with this receptor, that actually changes the trouble. That actually initiated the trouble. Now the virus is able to connect with the human cells. It's purely probability. It might mutate in a way that it can bind with the receptor of a monkey. It might mutate in a way that it might bind with the receptor of the reptiles. But we were unlucky when a virus is capable of binding itself or docking itself with human receptors. And the unlucky stuff is that this receptor is present on the lung cells. So these lung cells are creating the walls of the air tracts. So if these cells are affected, you can guess, and you can say these cells are the most exposed cells of the body. अगर आप मुझसे पूछे जो कुछ भी हवा में है, whatever is present in the air is present here. Air में oxygen है, is present here. Air में carbon dioxide is present here. There is no obstruction between air and those cells. So if air contains that virus, that means those virus is able to reach here as well. It's that much open. Nature keeps all the air tracts passageway open all the time. So this is the most vulnerable thing. So if a virus is able to connect itself, bind itself with those cells, that means it's the most easiest of the target a virus can have. Think about, compare it with the liver cells. The liver cells are present far, far deep inside our body, away from the lungs. If a virus is capable of binding, another example of the virus, and that virus is the Hepatitis C virus. It is capable of binding with the cells present in the liver. It can only bind with the liver cells. But that virus will not be able to reach to the liver easily. It needs a travel into our blood circulatory system. It should enter into our blood circulatory system, and it is not easy to enter into our blood circulatory system. It requires some fluids, something. So that is why a blood transfusion or similar sort of thing is required. Enters into the blood, and when it enters into the blood, what will happen? You know what happens? The immune system will be there, and that immune system will destroy the virus to reach to the liver. We have an appropriate time to fight with these things. But in this case, look at the sensitivity. It's exposed. And virus in the air, virus is there. So virus will not be dealt by the immune system. So if these cells started affecting, the problem is that they start destroying the cells, they will start producing the fluid, or the immune system will start fighting those cells, and that will clog the air passageway. The more infection, the more blockage is there. And if your immune system is not able to fight with that virus, the blockage will continue, and that actually affect the breathing. So it's a fight that whether you able to curb the virus well. If you're not, then you are actually losing a very important organelle which is responsible to take care of everything else. Heart में trouble होती है ना, तो अगर lungs में trouble होती है तो सारे organs को trouble होती है. If somebody is having a trouble with the heart disease, his heart muscles are not very much strong, already troubling and struggling. So what will happen if the lungs are not working at 100%? If oxygen saturation is low, 92, 90, 88, 87, 90 for a longer period of time, what will happen? The lungs, because of the inefficiency of the lungs, the heart will feel more in trouble. And so is the other parts of the organ. So that's why it's a life-threatening situation. I just speak more just to refresh you guys about the coronavirus. Okay, thank you for the question. I'm happy for the question, so that is why I'm excited to speak more. Any more questions? So I will proceed with the first example. It's a kind of, we will be studying about the animal bioreactors, creating animals of our own choice to produce the things of our own choice. It seems unkind, but we did it, and we have done it because we can do this. And it reminds me about a movie called I think Aunt Bully. आप लोगों में से किस-किसने देखी है? You can share your reactions with me, okay? You know, if you can speak as well. किसने देखी है Aunt Bully? Aunt Bully. And in Aunt Bully, you can share your reactions. Nobody? No reactions?
No, sir.
नहीं भी होता है. एक reaction नहीं भी होता है. नहीं देखी सर. Okay, we have.
नाम भी नहीं सुना.
नाम भी नहीं सुना. Oh my God. और देखी हुई है, एक देखी हुई आ गई। तो उसमें ना, उसमें यूं होता है, उस शायान ने नहीं देखी हुई, ओके ओके, कुछ लोगों ने नहीं देखी हुई, कुछ लोगों ने देखी हुई, अबीर ने देखी हुई। उसमें ये होता है कि एक बॉय होता है, वो ना आंट्स के नेस्ट को डिस्ट्रॉय कर देता है, यूज्ड टू डिस्ट्रॉय द नेट्स ऑफ द आंट्स इन हिज यार्ड। सो आंट्स उसको किडनैप कर लेती हैं बाद में एक मैजिक तरीके से, और उसके बाद वो स्टोरी चलती है। बट व्हेन द क्वीन aunt asked to the boy, okay, why you destroy our nest? You know how much effort from our side is required to raise our nest. कितनी मेहनत लगती है उसके लेवल्स बनाने में, उसको ऑर्गेनाइज करने में, and you just came from nowhere and just destroy our nest. Why you do this? And the boy answered, I destroy your nest because I can do. So if someone asks me, I mean, to the humans, the same question. So we have done this thing. Why? Because we can do. And you know, this one is a Tracy. Tracy is a sheep. In 1997, when we started experimenting with the zygote and with the inner cell mass, starting sending genes into the zygote and inner cell mass, the first transgene animal we have produced with the recombinant protein. So we have incorporated a gene. The name of the gene is alpha-1 antitrypsin. The alpha-1 antitrypsin is a protein which is required to fix a disease called cystic fibrosis. It's a very famous experiment because in case of cystic fibrosis, the body lost its potential to produce alpha-1 antitrypsin protein. So what we have done at that time, that we have created a sheep with the additional gene of alpha antitrypsin into and we put them among the proteins produced in the milk. So when that sheep produces the milk, that milk contains alpha-1 antitrypsin. Now, eating a drug molecule, taking a drug is a different thing. Drinking the milk is entirely different feeling. So if you ask someone that the person is, is taking a drug, it feels like the person is patient. He is, eating a pill or a capsule or taking an injection. What about drinking the milk? It's so natural, seems very interesting. So the milk of that sheep contains the enzyme alpha-1 antitrypsin, which can solve the problems associated in these two these two disease situations. And that was created by the company. This is the name of the company. And the milk was commercialized, and it was like, say, it considered as a drug or as a solution for the people who are having those disease. But nobody asked to the goat for that purpose. Another important product, the transgenic male, produced by the Nexia Biotechnologies. They have created that goat by incorporated spider silk gene from the orb spider. So the orb spiders, its silk is very strong, and I can tell you the spider silk is one of the most strongest material. I can tell you it is even stronger than steel. You can ask me, sir, why it's more stronger and flexible than steel? Because it can carry more times of the weight. It can carry more weight than its own with respect to its own weight. It can bear the burden and pressure. वो जो physical properties होती है ना, physics में we used to study in physics, like stress and strain. It has the highest stress and strain. It can bear the pressure a lot. So a small thin fiber can hold much more weight as compared to the steel with the same size and with the same weight. So the spider silk gene was extracted, the sequence was found from the orb spider, and it was incorporated into the goats. Now the resulting goats, यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा trick है, I mean you just need to understand that trick. They used to sire the silk producing female goats. So they used to sire, so they have created the male goats and they sell the male goats, to sire the silk producing female goats. Now each goat produces several grams of silk produced in the milk. So that's a different thing. That's entirely weird and different thing. So the milk is not supposed to have the silk protein. Remember, silk proteins is a thread-like protein. It can spun, it can be created and transferred into threads, and then to the wool, eventually to the clothes. This can be done. And silk protein is not digestible. It is actually dangerous to be there in the milk. So the goat which is produced out of this experiment, if allowed to feed her own babies might be dead because of those milk, because the milk is carrying the silk protein, which is long threads, and we don't know how to deal with the animal enzymes don't know how to deal with the spider silk protein. So it's very dangerous. So it is not allowed for those goats to have babies or to milk or to feed their babies. And it is also not allowed to let those goats to go out of the farm and to mix with the wilds. So all of those goats which were created out of that experiment, they have spider silk protein in the milk. So when the milk is harvested, the milk is centrifuged. You can imagine the spider silk protein is big size and thread-like structure. It will be extracted more easily. It can be dried and spun and create the fibers. And then those fibers are used to create a bulletproof jacket, which was used by the American US forces. Now the bulletproof jacket they have created is lighter than steel, but stronger than steel, because the fiber has more strength. So when the fibers were put together to create the bulletproof jacket, that was like more stronger than the steel. Is another interesting. That was one of the example of that thing. Ji, Aisha raised it.
Sir, what is the significance of producing a male goat first and not directly transgenic female goat?
So there should always, it's a very good question, Shabash. It is a kind of a check and balance thing, that no female goat alone is capable of having the complete allele of that gene. There should always be a need of a male goat to sire and to produce a generation which can be used for this experiment. Because what I believe, I don't know the exact details, but I believe is that they might be producing a generation of goats, female goats, harvest the milk as much as possible, and then I should not use the word destroy them, but actually they destroyed them at the end of the day, because there is no other use of those female goats. But the male goats, they were kept, and I think that is how they are actually selling the genes. If somebody asked to sell the genes, they will be selling the male goats to them, because the males are not producing any milk. So the male goats can be transferred from one place to another, and they are not, nothing is harvested from the male goats. So they are like the primary source of the genes. And female are created and destroyed.
Thank you, sir.
Created and destroyed. I believe so. Ji Maha, you have a question.
Okay, sir.
So this doesn't sound very ethical. इसके कोई ethical concerns नहीं होते?
बिल्कुल होते हैं. But I can tell you, many of our research issues, research products were created out of some problems which were asked to the government. Like it was, and I can tell you there are many products which come from the research centers run by the army. The most famous of the product you are using nowadays, especially, if you can remember, Mospel, the mosquito repellent. the mosquito repellent material is produced by a research organization funded or run by an army institution by the US. And that was the question which was raised during the Vietnam War. The Vietnam is quite tropical. A lot of mosquitoes were there. The American soldiers, they have complained a lot about the mosquitoes. So they have like always complained about these things. So the American Army Research Center tried to solve that thing. So they have created a molecule which can help the soldiers to avoid mosquitoes, to repel the mosquitoes. Later on, it was allowed to, it was shared with the rest of the world, and now we all can use that thing. So there is no reason to produce the spider silk within the milk of a goat, other than the defense purpose, to produce fiber, to create a clothes which are stronger, which has more tensile strength, which has more strength as compared to the fiber. So I believe that the big guys, the big people like American, like or US or other countries who have access to this technology, the big people, they might be wearing the clothes from that spider silk gene as a protection. So of course this is an ethical issue. That is why it is not commercialized, does not reach to us. It is not for everyone. That's quite, I believe so, it is quite unethical. I can tell you there are more unethical experiments out there. And these are some of the examples I can share with you guys to allow you to ponder and to drag and to mine more examples. Okay, like this. And then there is another product called, it was created by GTC Biotherapeutics. And they have, they sell an human antithrombin or ATRYN. Human antithrombin is purified from goat's milk in the Europe as well. So they are not selling the milk, they are producing that protein into the milk, and then in the industry where they are actually keeping all the goats, and those unfortunate goats, their job is just to produce the milk, not to feed their babies, but to give to the industry. The industry is harvesting and extracting like antithrombin out of their milk. And that is why they are called as bioreactors. They're used to produce things. And then they can sell this thing to the market. And this technology is not restricted to the milk producing things. They are actually, certain genes are inserted into using rabbits and other for other things. Like in poultry industry, we are pushing the chickens to grow faster than normal, and to breed faster and to grow faster, much faster, chickens especially. There is another interesting example, and that is they are producing a recombinant drug in their egg, and it was created by this institute. Just check that egg. So that egg white contains albumin plus that recombinant drug. So the patients are not given the pills, the patients were given the eggs. So they are taking the eggs and consuming albumin together with the recombinant drug. So that is how they are actually helping humanity in one way or another. That people do not like to eat the pills, take the pills, so they might like to eat the eggs. G. दो लोगों ने एड्रेस किया, I don't know किसने पहले किया है. Anyways, Abir, you can ask. It's your turn in that case.
Isn't it just faster to just produce the drug instead of going through this whole process to make it slightly more appealing?
Yes. You know, if you ask me why industry is spending money for any such experiment, industry actually work in a way to find the best possible market. When humans, they are not feeling comfortable with one thing, it's a problem. So any industry which came up with a solution will going to earn the money out of it. Like, क्या हम पंखे के बगैर रह सकते हैं humans? हम रहते रहे हैं ना पंखों के बगैर. But when we started, it is better to live with the fans. So there were companies who started investing in the research to develop fans, and then to the air conditions, and now future, and the future, and the future. That is how things work. Humans होते हैं ना, उनकी जो desires होती हैं, comforts होती हैं, that actually raises those problems and questions. And markets, industries, they actually capture those feelings. They actually work on those questions and try to address them and then create a product out of it. And we don't care what we are doing. For example, with increased population of humans, the ordinary chicken is not good enough because the cycle of their growth is very less, is very slow. How about producing a chicken? I don't know the exact number. आप में से कोई जिसका chicken farm हो, might know that वो ये is less than a month. It's already prepared from the egg to the whole big chicken. But think about as a biologist to find the difference between I'll try. Oh, this is nowhere near to the chicken. I'm sorry. I have a bit. But let's suppose this is the broiler chicken. This is quite a big one. And this is like the wild type chicken, which is very fast and running here. So this is the genetically modified chicken. Let's see what is the difference between the broiler chicken, or I must say that's better somehow. So this is like a genetically a GMO chicken, and then there is a comparative wild type chicken. It's supposed to be very fast and running and moving around. It's a wild type chicken. And you know, इसको देसी chicken भी बोलते हैं. It is, if you want to compare these two things together, just try to capture one of the desi murgi out there. You came to know how fast and quick a desi murgi is. And then if you try to capture this one, you can capture it without any problem. I mean, वो भी healthy भी नहीं. They don't even move their places. So the difference between these two is that when we are creating this transgene, we push the genes which are contributing in the growth. Remember, whatever the resources an organism is having in terms of food and other things, those resources are supposed to be transferred to all possible biological activities of the cells. Those resources will be divided into all possible biological activities. One of the activity is like gaining the muscle mass, or in easier word, that means the growth. There are a lot of other biological activities going on within the living system. Critical thinking, brain development, learning, and controlling the metabolism, and a lot of other things. So there are a lot of other things. Brain development is there. There is learning, and there is a control of other organs, and a lot of other things are there. So naturally, the resources are divided into all these things. We actually enhance and push this one phenomenon and divert most of the resources to this path. That actually decreases the attention of the living thing or the living system to all the other functions. So it is like diverting the resources to gain the muscle mass only. So you should expect the health of the heart is not good enough. The health of the kidney is not good enough. The health of the vision is not well. And you can guess all other things are not good enough as compared to the wild type. But one thing is much better as compared to the wild. The wild type is taking like 5 to 6 months to grow, and it is taking less than a month to grow. But this is not going to be a normal species, because the resources are diverted and pushed only towards them to gain the muscle mass. It's more vulnerable to the disease, is less immune. It will not be able to survive in the wild. If you leave this chicken to the wild, it will be dead in no time. But that is the stuff which is normal and wild type. So that is why this one receives most of the mass, and this is growing in a normal way. So this is not a normal species. Okay. So in the next slide, we will see some other advanced things, and I want to focus on this thing a lot. that how we can create the transgene and what is the strategies and methodology. That is very important. So we will quickly go through the different examples, and then we stick on this important slide.